Welcome to another edition of Golriz. Today we're going to be previewing Iran's upcoming match versus Guam. That'll be happening on September 3rd. It will be Iran's second World Cup qualifying match. We're going to be joined by Sina, Saemian, Babak, Golriz, our two regular panelists, and a special guest, Scott McIntyre, who we had the pleasure of speaking to during the Asian Cup. Football journalist and broadcaster with 10 years of Asian experience. Hope you guys enjoy it. Currently joined by Babak, Golriz, Sina, Saemian, and Scott McIntyre. How you guys doing?
Very good. Good evening. Thanks, Pasha. Good to be here.
Yeah, pleasure, guys. So as we know, Guam is top of Group D with 6 points with back-to-back wins over Turkmenistan and India, and obviously 5 points above Iran currently. Before we discuss about Iran's match versus Guam, I want to first go back to Iran's first match versus Turkmenistan. As we saw, Kairosh's lineup was very tactically very naive. And my first question to you, starting off with you, Sina, what should we change and what should we be improving on against Guam?
I think the game against Turkmenistan, we started well and everything looked... Yeah, certainly the game against Turkmenistan, I thought we started well. We scored an early goal. Things looked right. But our mistake was not to double our lead, and he came back to haunt us. We had a few problems on the left-hand side of our defence because Ehsan Hoysafi was playing there. Although he has played a left-back during his career, but he's not a recognised full-back, in my opinion, certainly. And he cost us the game. And I think second half we were really frustrated. So what we can't afford to do in this game against Guam, regardless of the tactics and who plays and who doesn't, the Guam team will come to Tehran in the hope of getting something. So they will look to frustrate us. But one thing we shouldn't do is panic or get frustrated, because we will get chances to score. This is a game that not only we should, but we expect ourselves to get the 3 points. So as I said, regardless of who starts or what the tactics are, mentally we have to be ready to play a tough game, because there are no easy games, as we saw in the last game against Turkmenistan as well. And Guam will be very motivated in this game, and that's another thing, to make sure that we want to win, we want to get something out of the game more than they do.
Babak?
Yeah, I agree with Sina. Tactically, let's say the first 20-25 minutes of that game was some of the best attacking football I'd seen from Iran in a while, and I thought we're going to build on it, but we really fell apart, especially in the defensive side of the game. Centre-backs weren't clicking, left-back Hoysafi wasn't in good shape that day, but looking back, getting that result against Turkmenistan over there may not have been the worst thing, because it's a wake-up call for Kairosh, number one. We won't underestimate our opponents coming forward. Guam has had 2 impressive wins already, which means we definitely shouldn't underestimate them. And with all due respect to both Guam and India, if I was going to draw away in one of our games, I would have been more comfortable in Turkmenistan than the others. So overall, I'm expecting to see a better game. But as Sina said, we have to be patient. And we shouldn't get frustrated if we don't score an early goal. I just hope that we have the right tempo to be able to cause Guam problems.
What did you make out of that match, Scott?
I thought it was an interesting prism to look at it through, because Turkmenistan had come to Guam and in many ways I think disrespected Guam, because they arrived at 5 o'clock on the morning of the match. And they arrived with, I believe, 14 players, including only 1 goalkeeper. So, it's very hard if you put the 2 matches side by side, because I thought Turkmenistan were good against Iran, and obviously some players that didn't travel to Guam that I think have stayed in Turkmenistan. So, in many ways, it's hard to get a real measure on how strong the opponent was, but certainly everybody. I think in Guam and around Asia was expecting that Iran still should be good enough to take maximum points against Turkmenistan. So it's put a little bit of pressure on them heading into these games now, particularly having the bye, which is an artificial conflation of the table. I mean, if you were to drop points, for example, in either of these games, and you've reached the halfway stage of qualification, it could be a hard thing to turn around.
Right. My next question to you guys is that now looking at the 23-man list put out by Queiroz, we see no Shojai, Sharifi, Gucci, and Sarifad. What are your thoughts on the 23-man list, Sina?
Well, just quickly going back to the last point, Scott made a very good point in terms of respect, and I think that's something we should definitely give to this Guam side. I mean, around 10-15 years ago, we played against Guam, and we scored, I think, was it 19 goals or something? That won't happen again. We won't even get close to it. And I think it's something that we should recognise, that there are no small teams on the continent anymore, and we should be respecting every single team. But in terms of your question that you just asked, I think it was surprising. Of course, Wuchan Najad was injured last week during a game for Charlton Athletic in Championship. He'll be out for a few weeks. Shojai has been without a club since June or July, so he's had no training, no games whatsoever. So it makes sense for him to not be included. And Sarifat has just moved to his new club in Greece. Again, I'm not sure if he's match fit or not, but one thing I was disappointed in was the fact that we've only taken 2 strikers.
Yeah.
Usually there is a spot for 3 strikers in the 23-man squad in the teams that Queiroz usually puts out, but this time we've only got 2 in Sadar Osmoon and Mehdi Taremi of Persepolis. I was disappointed not to see Mehdi Sharifi in there. I thought he's been probably the best striker playing in the Iranian domestic league. He was one of the top goal scorers last season, and overall his play, I think, deserves to be involved in the national team a lot more. Of course, recently he's been linked with a few Austrian clubs. Rapid Wien is the latest one, and I think he'll make the move to Europe, because I think he does have what it takes to succeed in Europe. I was disappointed not to see him. I think we may be overloading on wingers in this team. We've got around 3 or 4 on each side. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the fact that we've taken 4 centre backs, which I don't really see the need for. I think 3 may be enough, but I am a little disappointed, but I think we have what it takes in this squad to get 6 points out of these 2 games.
Babak?
Yeah, I think overall the squad is more or less, give or take 1 or 2 names, more or less the best that we have at the moment. But looking at it, again, I agree with Sina. There's a number of wingers over there which I can't see how they will all contribute. And at the same time, there's a number of players with question marks next to their name in terms of match fitness and readiness. Ashkan Dejaga is one of them. Then you have Saeed Ezzatolai, who hasn't played for Rostov this season yet. He's moved there to Russia, which is a big step, but he hasn't played yet for them. You have Alireza Haidi, who hasn't started in goal for his club since he's back at Ruben Kazan, and he's our starting goalkeeper. Khosrow Haidar is there again. I'm not sure why. Then you have Alireza Jahanbakhsh. He hasn't played for AZ Alkmaar yet. So again, fitness issues. You have Pur Ali Ganji, who the Chinese, if I'm not mistaken, the Chinese league is on a break currently. Then I had another name here, which is, I believe, Salal's Andranik Teimourian and Pejman Montazeri, who's also in Qatar. So these are players which are key players for us, and they haven't really gotten into the groove this season yet. So I'm curious to see what starting lineup Carlos Queiroz puts out in the first game. We may have 1 or 2 surprises like we had against Turkmenistan.
Right. Scott, any surprising, because I know you watch Iran vividly whenever you get a chance, is there any surprising names on that list that you think will be a threat against Guam?
Yeah, in terms of the absences, I think it is, as you said, and then it just comes down to the other point you made, really how fit and how conditioned are indeed both sides. Obviously it's an issue for Guam, but not all the players are playing regular football on Guam either, and as you mentioned, some of the names there are not playing regularly for Iran as well. So in some ways that may end up being an important factor in team selection and indeed how the game unfolds as well.
Right. Scott, you've been with the team for a while now, and you're currently with the team in Osaka as they're getting prepared to play against Iran on September 3rd. How's it working with the national team on daily basis, and how has this remarkable experience been for you so far, working with Gary White and, playing, being with Jason Conliffe and AJ De La Garza?
It's. AJ hasn't actually arrived in camp yet. He arrives tomorrow afternoon over here. But it's a fantastic story. I was with them, as you know, the last couple of home matches when they played India and Turkmenistan. And you look back, I think, you mentioned earlier 19-0 for the qualifier for the 2002 World Cup, although there was some issues around that because I believe they played Tajikistan either 2 days before or 2 days after. So they played, literally two matches in 3 days, which was not ideal. But even the state of football on the island in Guam at that time was non-existent. There were no pitches. Yesterday there was a joint press conference because the Japan Football Association has been helping Guam out and indeed has helped since around that time when those matches were happening. And Kozo Tashima, who's now on the FIFA Executive Committee, was the first foreign instructor to come to Guam and go through the coaching licenses and so on. And he told me yesterday that when he first came, there was only one pitch in the whole island, and that was at a high school, and it wasn't made of grass. So,
wow.
Now to the point where they have a national training centre, they have academy programs with youth players, and they've obviously been very smart as well in tapping in to the expat population and to players with Guamanian heritage. If you look at this squad, there's several members of the group that have played professionally at MLS level. You touched on AJ De La Garza. Brandon McDonald played 100 odd games for FC Dallas and United and a few other clubs around. Ryan Guy played many times for the New England Revolution. So there's guys with big regular experience at big clubs, and that helps kind of infuse the whole squad and really set an example in terms of training, in terms of preparation. Everything is very professionally done. I've been for a long time with many clubs and national teams working closely in my role as journalist, and in terms of the preparation, I can honestly say the attitude of the players here is as good as I've seen it anywhere. The facilities here that the JFA have assisted with are up there in global standards. It's a fantastic facility. Numerous full-size pitches. Even though I look around now, it's almost midnight in Japan. There's still youth teams from various Japanese clubs out here training under floodlights. Everything that you couldn't ask for a better preparation. So. It's a wonderful story. I think there's only 160,000 people that live permanently on Guam, and you talk about a potential crowd maybe in a couple of days' time. It's almost half the population of Guam. So it's,
right.
To come from such a small base, so I think you touched on Gary's done a wonderful job. Richard Lai, the president of Guam, and they've got a lot of outside help as well. This is also. The impact of those other results, for example. Stop me if I keep going.
Oh no, please, we love you too, because we want us to get educated more about Guam. Because we honestly haven't watched them. I don't think neither of the guys have. Also, so it'll be anything that you think will be unique for the listeners will be always a pleasure to listen to.
So you talk about the staffing levels. Even a couple of years ago, there was a coach, and prior to Gary, those coaches were on loan from the JFA until there was a change in US regulations around 2011, where you had to hire someone with ties to the US, and Gary had worked previously in Seattle running the youth academy there. So he was brought in, but I think that may have been one of the first times that the coaching and technical staff was actually paid, and now to the point where you've got local assistant coaches. He's got a goalkeeping coach, Adrian Creamer, who's very highly regarded, works at Watford in the UK. He's now here working with the team as well. And as a result of the wins last time, the GFA invested for the very first time in getting a sports scientist here. So
right.
We have a guy called Andrew Young from Australia, who's very highly regarded, has worked with the Australian national team for many, many years, and and works professionally with all other sports. He does a Formula One racing, and he actually, I believe, turned down a contract to work with the McLaren F1 team to come and work with Guam for the remainder of the campaign because he believes so much in it. So you now have a situation where he's brought in GPS units, so the players are training regularly now with GPS every day. The data is being downloaded, and the players are, aware that the training loads are being carefully tailored to prevent injury. So it's, it's the whole program is really, every camp developing and becoming, so professional. So I think the days now of, 19-0s and this kind of thing is gone. And despite the population and the history with Guam, I think it's, it's really not beyond the realms that, okay, maybe qualification for the World Cup is difficult, but we sometimes forget this is also doubling as qualification for the Asian Cup, and I think that's a legitimate aim for Guam.
Right.
Scott, I have a question. I mean, first of all, some of the stuff you just said makes me shake my head a little bit because it's impressive in one hand, and at the same time, you feel that some of those resources are not at the disposal of Carlos Queiroz at the national team, which is a bit of a shame because we're a country which was a traditional powerhouse in Asian football, and now we have a manager who definitely has an international pedigree, but has got his hands tied a little bit in terms of the help he gets. But my question is, did Guam legitimately have some sort of aspirations to finish second in this group before a ball was kicked, or were these first two games completely changed things and caught even the most optimistic of members of the backroom staff by surprise?
No, it's not. It wasn't a surprise. I mean, I was with them as I said for the first thing. And I remember the build to those games when there were team meetings and the coaching staff and the players would get together and say, what are our aims for these two games? Everybody said we will be on top of Group D after the first two games, and that was the aim. Whether it was going to be 4 points or 6 or 3, even that it took to get you there, that was the aim, and really every player totally bought into it, and we did a similar exercise here a couple of nights ago. What are the aims and the ambitions for these upcoming matches? And every single player of the 20-man squad said we will be on top of Group D after these next two matches as well. So the belief, really the belief in the squad is astonishing. The players think and feel and believe that they can beat Iran.
Sina, is there any question you have for Scott?
No, I think he's covered everything. I'm just waiting for the game. I think it's going to be a really interesting game. And listen, we all know what the Iranian football community is like. They'll underestimate each and every opponent. So I have no questions that there will be an element of complacency from the Iranian camp. I just hope it's not as big as I hope it is, and we manage to win the game.
Right, Scott, I have a question for you. Because I know that Guam has a really fluid attacking style of game to them. Which players do you think will be a threat against Iran? Before we're gonna jump talking about lineups and stuff, and what kind of formation does usually Gary White play, as we saw the matches against Turkmenistan and India?
Yeah, you obviously saw those home games where it was a 4-2-3-1. In terms of what he's thinking this time. And I don't know. He's obviously a very detailed coach, and he's got a lot of scouting reports on Iran. I think he's watched the 10 or 15 games, so no doubt he'll have a plan in place to deal with how he expects Iran to play. And we don't know how that will be either. So there might be a feeling out period in the game before either side adjusts and gets into a rhythm. And the players here. From an attacking point, there's a lot of threats. As you know, Jason Cunliffe, who's the long-serving captain of the national team, an attacking midfield player, a caps holder, record goal scorer for the national team. Technically, very, very good. I remember in the second match in Guam, there were a few technical officers from the Japan Football Association. They were watching and said this guy's good enough, to come to Japan and play in the top division. But often it's a case with the guys in Guam that nobody's scouting them, nobody is watching them. And you look at the wide players as well on either side, John Matkin and Shane Malcolm. Shane is now playing in Australia, and they're very exciting players. They're pacey players. They're direct. They like to have the ball at their feet, dribble, take players on, and they're also very good in one-on-one situations, and they've got a good shot on them as well. So there's certainly a lot of attacking weapons in the side, and defensively as well. Obviously, AJ Delagaza is one of the, in my opinion, the best defenders in Asia, and a young guy, Mason Grimes, who's come on in leaps and bounds, has been doing a great job as well. And the right fullback, Alex Lee, is really come from nowhere. I mean, he plays the second division football in the States for Richmond Kickers, but he was probably the best player, I think, over the two games. A real attack-minded fullback. We did a fitness test here the other day with the sports scientist, and he came out almost on top of that. And again, he's technically a very good player. So I think people just look at it on the outside now, and they look historically at the results and perhaps the population base, and indeed where the players are playing. I mean, a lot of could potentially be 3 or 4 of the starting 11 don't have a club. For argument's sake. So you can easily look at that and make the mistake of thinking that they're not perhaps where they should be. But often, as you see with smaller clubs and certainly with smaller national teams, they're fighting for something bigger. They're fighting for the island. That's totally behind them. I mean, the other weird thing is because of the relationship with Guam and the US, so Guam doesn't have a sports ministry, and therefore they get no government funding whatsoever. Unlike most football associations around the planet. So it's always been a struggle to attract funding. Other sports are obviously popular. The US sports on the island as well. But after these results, the Guam Visitors Bureau chipped in, and I think they gave $300,000 to support the campaign to bring extra staff on, and they got some money from the government as well for the very first time. So everybody on the island is really excited. They're building a new smaller grandstand of the training facility as well. So it's all these things. If you look, I don't know if it was broadcast on the coverage that you saw, but before both games, and they're hoping to get the approval to do it here from the match commissioner. They have, I don't know how to describe it properly. It's almost like the New Zealand rugby team does this thing called the haka, like a kind of war dance thing. They call it the Inefresi, which is it's kind of like a chant in the indigenous language of the Chamorro people, and the players all stand in a circle, and it's a kind of pledge of allegiance to the islands of Guam. So it's a really emotional kind of thing, and a lot of boys have got these traditional tribal tattoos that they have as well that they've got since they've come together as this team. So if you talk about a group of guys that are fighting for something bigger than themselves, I think you'd probably go a long way to find a group that are more committed to it than this one.
Appreciate that. That's very interesting. Coming back to you, Babak and Sina, before we talk about the lineups and stuff, how do you see Queiroz approaching this match against Guam? Is he going to sit back? And we're obviously playing at home. It's not going to be wise for us to sit back, especially when we need the 3 points. And how do you guys think he's going to approach this game? And what lineup do you guys think he's going to, and which players do you think he's going to put in? I'm going to start this off with Babak.
I definitely think that there's no way we're going to sit back in a game like this. I'm not against that. We definitely should be taking the game to Guam. There are certain games which our style of football doesn't suit. It's about how well we're capable of cutting teams open. And that has always been my problem with Iran over the last 10, 12 years. We have had trouble cutting teams open and trying to create chances behind your opponents when they sit back. So that's the reason that I think it's going to be a challenging game. And the longer the game goes without us scoring, or without us, let's say, looking like scoring, I can see the pressure building. But in terms of style, I think it's going to be a 4-2-3-1 more or less. That's pretty much what Queiroz does all the time. In terms of strategy, I think we will dominate possession. We will have more chances. The question is, are we going to take them? In terms of lineup, that's a whole different thing. It's really open to anyone's guess, because there's a few players who you're pretty sure are going to start, like Sardar Azmoun, Ashkan if he's fit, potentially Ariza Jahanbakhsh if he's fit, match fit, because he's been called up. Then you have Haiti in goal, you have Hosseini, Montazeri. These are the kind of guys, Temurian obviously. But how the rest of the team fits around them, I mean, it's anyone's guess. Is he going to try a new guy at left back in a game against Guam?
Yeah.
Is he going to try a new partner for Teimourian in central midfield? Is Saïd Ezzatollah going to get another chance? I mean, a lot of questions because it's a 2-game series against Guam and India, and I really don't know what's going on in Kirish's mind because it's been a long time since our last game.
Sina?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is a game that, especially at home, we should be comfortable in terms of possession and taking the game to the opposition. In terms of lineup, I was looking at the squad before, and there is no recognised attacking midfielder. And obviously, the only left back that we have is Milad Mohammadi, so I expect him to start his second cap. I think it's his first start for the national team. Only 21 years old, plays for Rohan. Centre back partnership, I can't really decide what he's going to go with because he's got Montazeri, Hosseini, Purali, Ganji, and Kanani all fit. So he's got options in as centre back. But the players I don't want to see in the lineup are the likes of Khosrow Haidari, which I don't really see as as Babak alluded to before as well. I don't really see why he's in the squad in the first place. I think he's going to go with the Andranik. Harsafi and Ibrahimi, who's had a blistering start to the season. Both of them, Harsafi and Ibrahimi, have had a great start to the season. But I expect Harsafi to be a little bit more attacking-minded, with Dejagah on one side and maybe Vahida Amiri on the left wing with Sadar Osman leading the line. But we know what Karish is like. He's definitely got options, especially in midfield, so he may change it around. We might see Dejagah playing an attacking midfield role with Aliza Jahan Bakhsh on the right. So he's got options and he can mix it around. But one thing I'm worried about is, as I said before as well, is in terms of panicking and getting frustrated. We had a game against Qatar in qualification for the 2014 World Cup at home, and the game ended 0-0. It was a game that we had a lot of possession, but we were panicking. We kept making the wrong decisions. We missed a lot of opportunities because of that, and I don't really want to see that. Not just in this game, but in future games either. I think we are a team who, we have the quality. Even if we don't have a clear-cut chance for 80 minutes, we have the quality to create that one chance in the entire game and still be able to take something out of it. But we need to remain calm and keep digging. I'm not saying that will be the case with Guam. I think this is a game that we should win comfortably, especially at home. But again, if things don't work out the way we want it to, just like it didn't against Turkmenistan, I don't want to see players getting frustrated or making the wrong decisions in order to get at the opposition a lot quicker, because it just makes it easier for the defending team.
Scott, is there any key battles we should look out for looking from the Iran side and Guam? That would be interesting.
Yeah, as you said, this is a game that most people expect Iran to dominate. You certainly will have more of the possession, and you imagine, most of that possession will come in Guam's half, and quite possibly a lot of it in the final third for Iran. So if you think it's going to play out that way, then and if as you expect it's a 4-2-3-1, then the front four for Iran against conceivably a back 6, 7 or 8 or whatever it's going to be for Guam is the key areas, and obviously Sadar Azmoun is a big threat in particular, and the battle up against AJ Delagazi, one of the rising young forwards in Asian football, up against a guy who's only just recently come onto the scene because of his previous experiences with the US national team and so on, but probably one of the better defenders in this group and beyond. That should be a real interesting battle, I think.
Right. And then I'm going to conclude this with your score predictions. Might be a little bit biased, but Sina?
Oh, yeah, I'm not really good at predictions. I'll go for 2-0 to Iran, hopefully, with a clean sheet.
Babak?
I was going to say 2-0 as well, but now I'm going to go with 1-0 just to be a little bit different. I think we'll just about edge it. I think it's going to be a very frustrating game for us, and it would be nice if we can score an early goals that'll force Guam a little bit out of their shell as well. But I'm curious to see the kind of lineup we're going to put out. I fully expect us to be able to progress from this group, and I'm very, very surprised and kind of pleased to see Guam making the waves that they are. And I definitely wouldn't mind Guam coming second to us. They seem to approach the game in the right way. They've beaten teams that underestimate them. Let's hope that in itself is, let's say, a signal to us, our players, that they shouldn't underestimate Guam, because they're definitely a much improved team, and probably the most improved team in Asia based on their previous results.
Yeah, they've been a highest ranked for a while now. Scott, what's your score prediction?
Yeah, I'm terrible at predictions as well. But I mean, I think from some result, and you can expect it may be a back to the wall kind of effort. So I mean, a 0-0 I think would be a fantastic result, and certainly one that's achievable.
I appreciate you guys coming on, especially you, Scott. I know it's pretty late, probably midnight now in Osaka. Babak, Sina, and Scott, thank you guys once again, and then looking forward to this match. Appreciate it, guys.
No worries.
Just talk to you.
Thank you, Pasha.